He's like, well, first you have to understand that my central goal is to live well past 200 years. And to do that, and to get, dude, I kid you not, he said this
200 years old.
unironically, he goes to live well past 200 years. And here's the kicker, and get more athletic the whole time.
Okay, boys, we're here. Good to have all the functional patterns boys in one room. Cultish
Yeah,
behavior.
Dude,
I
happy
love
to
it.
be here.
So we're just talking about the intent, like finishing a comp class and how basically just retarded that makes you for the rest of for like the at least 2 to 4 hour period. I'm fucked. I'm useless. If I don't script some of my videos before that comp class, for the next two after I finish for the next 2 hours, I'm like, I can't even think.
Yeah, man, that's why the majority of my stuff nowadays is like if I'm gonna train, if it's a hard session, it's usually like I'll do a night class, uh, or I'll just do situations at the gym. Like doing situational rounds, I feel like you still get a lot of that technical development, but it doesn't turn me into a zombie afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, like I thought when I started making content and everything and lifting and like filming in the gym and filming all that stuff, it would be like a seamless transition to like restart jujitsu because I was hurt when I started making content. And dude, since I've come back, I've trained like tops 3 times a week. Like it's just like it just doesn't
Really?
happen. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because me and my coach were talking about it. It's like fuck if he's training 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, and doing his fucking content and doing his business. That's so. How does he fit that all in?
No, I don't. I thought I was gonna be able to. I was just like, I'll just go right back in. But then it's like we were just discussing. You know, you get back from a comp class, and I'm like, I have to like drag myself into the shower, get my food, sit down on my desk, and I'm just like,
I just
okay,
I just prioritize jiu-jitsu. I do that first and then the other shit, whatever.
What time do you
yeah,
train, Mike? You in the
Uh,
morning or you did a
I
11
prefer
o'clock?
morning. I prefer I'm teaching a lot more like before I was just training, but now I'm teaching, so like I have to teach the night class, which I actually don't like just because if you train hard, then it takes me long to recover and then I sleep poorly. Like I kind of changed how I roll sometimes. So like one, I'm a master's two athlete. You guys can do the math. So for me to do 2 days kind of
65
sucks.
years old. Got it.
for for me to do 2 days is very challenging if I do like two hard sessions. So generally I might do like the hard like wrestling in the morning, and then if I have to do a two a day, then the night would just be like positional or I just pull guard or something.
yeah.
Mike, can you tell us a bit about the research, or anyone who kind of has an idea, the
Sure.
research on a poor night's sleep? Let's say sub like eight. Let's say start with sub 8 hours
Sure.
sleep, and then doing hard jiu-jitsu training and the rate of injury and the kind of impact that that will have.
So usually it looks in a lot of the data is you want to have 7 hours or more. And I think also unless people are like I'm a fitness freak and I like track all my shit. Not everybody does that. So like what I learned is like when I thought I was getting 7 hours, I was really getting 6 hours because I toss and turn a lot. So the like a Fitbit kind of keeps me honest. Um, but if you look at injury rates and poor sleep, it tends to be a chronic sleep debt. So those increased injuries occur at about like 2 weeks. So if you're constantly sleep deprived
Oh,
for up to 2 weeks and you're getting less than 7 hours, that's where we're seeing increased injury rates. And I was actually just looking at a study now. Even if like you have poor sleep and then you get 2 nights of good sleep, the injury rate is still slightly elevated. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel
really
like
it comes
it's
down to.
kind of long. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can keep going.
I was saying, I feel like it's kind of the same thing with like dieting. Like if you're trying to like cut weight for a competition and multiple
Sure.
weeks at a time, you don't just like recover from eating normally for 2 days.
No.
Like that takes a hit. Like at least when I've done like 8, 12 week cuts where I drop
Sure.
body weight, drop body fat, I don't come back to full strength with
No.
until like 3, 4 weeks.
Sure. Sure. Yeah,
how's your
man.
gut? You go
Sorry.
back.
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a big thing. I mean, if we're going to be talking jiu-jitsu athletes, it's like lifestyle management, good sleep, good nutrition habits versus like doing the back in the day with MMA, they would do the fat camp where they're trying to drop a lot of weight really fast. I think nowadays, like MMA is becoming more professional. Jiu-jitsu, maybe with CJI, when there's actual money in the line, we'll start to see more professionalism in the sport. But I think you guys are all strength coaches, right? And I think that's a big thing where we see a lot of like jiu-jitsu guys being more like amateur athletes than actually professional athletes.
Yeah, I still think though, like even like I mean, I've had the inside look of a lot of these CGI training sessions and stuff.
Sure.
Like it's still, I feel like we're still so behind in the dark ages of like, guys, go to the gym, lift weights. Like you can just two, 3 times a week. It's okay. But it's like, no, I'd rather do 3 sessions of jujitsu and
Yeah.
then eat like a child and then sleep 4 hours. It's like, dude, for real?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, man, I've got a bunch of these like infographics and stuff for like water loading, stuff like that. I do think in general, when we talk about like these like longer term weight loss things, like jujitsu guys tend to be a bit limited because of so many events being same day weigh-ins. So you won't see them blow up between camps in the same way that MMA fighters will. But yeah, man, some people this was like a year ago now, but one of my guys who's been competing full time for like, I don't know, 8 years, uh I saw him, he was like, man, he's like dragging ass in the weight room. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, man, like I'm starting to limit my water. And he's like 2 weeks out from he's 2 weeks out from competing. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Dude, I've
What,
seen that shit too.
what,
Yeah,
it's like,
man.
where did you get that this information from? Like,
And
what?
imagine that, like being chronically
You
dehydrated for
guys,
the 2 weeks leading up to a competition. It's unbelievable.
you want to hear one of the most crazy stories I've ever seen of this? I used to train at a 10th Planet in Arizona. Obviously, I'm not going to name any names, but there was a guy who was a Bellator fighter. And this was their protocol for him. They would do strength training only for like 6 weeks, like 3 months out. And then the idea is when it was time to like cut weight for the fight, they would drop the resistance training so he wouldn't be too bulky for his fight.
Dude, it's so mind-blowing
Six
because
six weeks out.
And then on top of that, like 3 or 4 weeks out, they started eating like light foods like sweet potato instead of rice. So his stomach was lighter. And I'm like, the digestive tract like completely clears out in like 48 hours, right? Like it's not gonna matter 3 weeks. It's crazy. And this was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. I think jiu-jitsu guys, again, you guys all agree, but I think there's been a lot of those things popping up, like Mikey Musumeci saying like, "Oh, I don't lift anymore and I'm stronger," which is, I think people have to consider that like physical capacity training, whatever that means for you, is like an investment. Like you're not going to see. It's not like you lift weights once and you're going to feel better. It's like you're going to feel better in a year, in 2 years. It's that
Yes.
chronic exposure where you're going to see the improvements.
Not
And
to
I think,
mention Not to mention that like it'll also permanently change you. Like if Roman never lifts again, he will still be like a Giga Chad version of himself that like compared to a
yeah,
version of him that never lifted. You know
Oh,
what I mean? So
100%.
like you get these guys that hit a certain level of strength and fitness, and then they're like, oh, I don't lift, yeah, anymore, like
Yeah.
you used to.
yeah,
Dude, that's like you guys seen Josh Saunders, like you're familiar with him, Josh Saunders. Like he
yeah,
was
Yeah.
like a rugby player, jacked as fuck, lifted all the time, and now he lifts once a week. And he admits to, he's not like saying anything crazy, but he lifts 1 time per week to just kind of maintain where he's at.
yeah.
And it's like he took all this time to create changes in his body, and then now he's like, now I can kind of coast on that. Versus, yeah, like you've been saying, I think a lot of people think that like muscle growth happens in like a hypertrophy block of like 8 weeks, and they're like, I got my muscle, now it's time to get functional. And it's like this takes years and
Sure.
years. But this is why jujitsu guys are bad with math too, is they don't understand finance and interest and
Yeah.
compounding interest. They just are like, I got $20,000 for my competition, I'm fucking rich.
What's that famous Arnold Schwarzenegger quote where like someone's like, "I don't want to look bulky like you," and he's like, "Don't worry, you won't."
Yeah, yeah.
Like people don't realize like how much effort he had to put in to look like that.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen by accident.
The crazy thing is the slow part. People are like, oh, I don't want to make myself bulky and slow, or I don't want to get injured lifting weights. It's like, where did this come from? Like, how did you come up with
Boxing.
how did you come up with this concept that you're suddenly going to get really slow if you get super jacked, or you're going to get injured more?
I
Like, what
think
is
it,
what?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's because like there's the IG kind of trend that I don't like is orthopedic surgeons or physicians, and they're like, this person got injured lifting weights. I'm like, so now like people are like, oh, well, you're a physician, I need to listen to you because they think that they're the expert, even though really orthopedic surgeons have no education on exercise or anything like that. And then they're like, well, they see someone pull their back. I mean, look, we've all been hurt. Like, I mean, I've been hurt lifting, I've hurt doing jujitsu, but that doesn't mean lifting is bad. Like, you just have to like be smart about it. Make sure your mechanics are good. Reps in reserve is a really good way to make sure you're hitting good intensity, but you're still like not overloading yourself. I mean, like Alex, we can talk about like when you hurt your groin, like you even said in hindsight, there was things that kind of built up. You're like, you should have known better when you went that, but like shit happens.
Dude, I didn't really share like the full details of like my load management nightmare leading into that, but
Let's go for it, Sternum. We're here now.
oh man. Okay, so all right. The first day I don't normally high bar back squat. I got low bars, zerchers, and front squats. I don't normally high bar. Reintroduced it after like years, right? And did like a couple sets of two. It wasn't too tough. I don't know, maybe three-ish reps in reserve. But it was a novel stimulus. And I did that one day. The next day I hit a 2 RM on my front squat, like true 2 RM. The next day, I reintroduced sprinting after 3 weeks off, which I was like, okay,
What
it
the
was only,
fuck?
it was only, yeah, it was only 3 weeks off. So I was like, all right, I'm going to cut down my volume. I did like less than half of what I normally did, but intensity was still high. And like, as I was doing some of those, I was even starting to feel like a bit of my adductor. And I'm like, all right, I'll pump the brakes. And then I had this content idea for a while that I was actually planning on doing. The next day that rolled around was a Monday. And Tuesdays are the days that we don't really see clients here and where I normally film most of my content. But in the middle of the day, Monday, there was like nobody here. The light was shining in. I'm like, dude, the lighting's great. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this thing now. I was gonna do, I had a series of questions from Instagram and I was gonna do 2 reps every minute on the minute for Zercher squats and try to like quickly answer questions in between. And literally the very first rep, I just dropped down. It's only 80% of my 1 RM, but I dropped down into the first one and I'm mic'd up and you just hear it tear. It was so anyways, I was really dumb. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I feel like, I mean, we already touched on the three most important things: load management, sleep, and nutrition, right? So like, people look at the UFC PI and they look at these UFC athletes and they do all this cool fancy shit. Which, don't get me wrong, if you have good load management and you have good sleep and nutrition, like, that extra whatever, cold punch, whatever, like might give you that 1% improvement. And at the highest level, that matters. But jiu-jitsu athletes don't have good load management in general. They don't have good sleep and they don't have good nutrition. And they're trying to make up for, they're like, well, I'm going to do this, all these other recovery bullshit things that aren't actually going to address the problem.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean like I also think when you're following like when you're following a well-designed plan, like it should account for a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
even my own thing, like I was ad-libbing some of that and yeah, and I wasn't supposed to do lower body again till Tuesday, but I was like, oh man, the lighting's pretty tight, so let's just bump it up a day, you know?
And the
Light.
addition of sprints as well. That's a classic thing. Like you get people going, oh, like I just did a big lifting session. I want to add this. I want to add that. And people just love kind of add in so much shit to one. It's like, hold on, are you even recovering, or do you even feel good from the amount of work that you're doing now before
Sure.
you even think about start adding shit in? Or like we spoke about on our last podcast, Sterner. Like the classic one is like a camp. They're like, oh, I've got worlds coming up in 8 weeks. Let's ramp it up. And obviously their jiu-jitsu is going to be, intense, shark
Yes.
tanks, whatever. Then they're like, oh, I'm going to get hill sprints in. I've got to get my weights in. Let's try and hit some PRs. It's like, a catastrophe is going to happen. And if it doesn't, you're going to be burnt out for fucking
Mhm.
weeks after that.
Yeah,
That's like,
man.
sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I mean, that's the big thing that I do with these guys. I have a year-round approach, and like when they're in camp for jujitsu, I really like try to temper their expectations. Like they're trying to hype each other up, and I'm like really pushing the brakes for those guys then because in the weight room, like we don't need that at that point in time.
Sure.
I cut their volume a bit, we'll still inch to higher intensities, but we're really not trying like in a dream scenario with a lot of these guys that I do get year round. Like a lot of these like gi focused guys right now, they're hitting big PRs. Like, I posted to Teo the other day, hit his first ever 500-pound deadlift. And then what I told him is like, last night we actually hit 510 again. Like he's still chugging along, right? And my goal for him is I was like, hey, so last time you were in camp, we were hitting our work sets like, around 4 plates, right? So my goal would be let's ride this out. Let's get you, let's see where your 1RM gets to mid fives probably, right? And then we want to settle back to like if we can get it to where the next camp you're settling back to like the high fours or maybe around five, man, that is like chef's kiss, perfect execution in my eyes. Because then he's in camp, he's significantly stronger than he was from the last camp, but it should be noticeably like a bit less. Like if these guys are hitting these comp classes, like we're talking about how we're drained physically, how the hell are you going to pull anywhere near a weight that you pulled when you were out of camp? When you're dealing with those comp classes and two-a-days and everything else these guys have to do.
There's
Yeah,
a
I feel like
interesting.
sorry,
Sorry,
go.
you go.
I feel like something that people neglect kind of too because we don't have an off season is like periods of like pushing up volume or pushing up trying to like maximize adaptations and then like hold phases of just like maintenance. And the idea that I have in my mind is like when you know you don't have something pressing coming up and the you're going to jujitsu essentially just to develop skills. Because if you have a camp that you're preparing for whatever, the amount of skill development you're actually going to get is pretty small because it's such a short window. Skills take a long time. The same way with like adaptations, it take a long time to develop. So like while you're doing skill development, you're also like pushing up adaptations because you're training volume and intensity so much lower. And then in camp, you swap those where you need to get physically prepared, like in shape and ready to go hard. And but like you're not really getting skill development. And then you swap from that push-up phase to just like a maintenance hold phase of like, we're not going to try to get a max 40-meter yard dash, right? Or a 40-yard dash. We're just going to hold and get really fucking in shape for jujitsu.
Well, so there's two things you could say, which I agree with everything you're saying. I think that comes to the instructor mindset too. Like, I don't know if you guys teach jiu-jitsu, like I teach jiu-jitsu, right? So when I'm working with my competitors, like these are my students, I always say like in camp, you're focusing on refining what you're already good at. When you're out of camp, now it's skill building. Like you don't need to win. It's about getting better. But like, I mean, I was talking to an AOJ competitor, like high level black belt competitor, and right now, they don't have anything big coming up until December, but they're still in like a competition intensity phase. I was like, you don't need to be doing this now. You need to be developing skill now. You can worry about that shit like October, maybe September, but even then, that's still pretty early.
Yeah, I think it's hard, like synergizing the jujitsu with the skilled or the strength and conditioning because they're never like I feel like it's always like separate entities of like, well, my coach said, and then the strength guy is like, well, can you like back off of like comp classes and just work on so like synergizing those two is like really difficult.
Yes. I was talking to a guy, he was a Unity guy, he's training Unity, and he's like, oh yeah, Murillo's like, I need to be lifting 4 days a week. And he wasn't lifting at all. And he didn't want to decrease his jujitsu at all. And then he wanted to add 4 days of lifting. And it's like, that's such a big jump in acute stress. Like, obviously, so there's a cool article by Bourdon, and it looks at acute to chronic workload. And when obviously you want to slowly ramp up the amount of load because obviously you need to be able to tolerate the stress. And kind of like what they found was anywhere from like zero point 0.8 to 1.3 amount of volume is like kind of a safe zone. And then if you go to like 1.4 to 1.5 of a sharper increase per week, that's where we see these increased injury rates. Now, how do you define workload? I mean, it could be just, if you're in the gym. When I'm in jujitsu, I'll use like live training as my like jujitsu volume, like for something like that. But again, you should be gradually add. You can't just throw like an extra 2 or 3 hours of time in and think you're going to respond well.
Dude, something that I think is tough with that though, especially relative to a lot of other sports, and like coming from having an inside look in like a D1 environment, like we look at training load as it relates to the sport, and let's look at one that's so much like more quantifiable, something like track and field, right? You've got sprinters and they're doing a certain number of max effort reps, or it's an acceleration day or whatever, right? Like you can really easily quantify what they're doing. Man, you could have a comp class 2 days in a row with the same partners, the same duration of rounds, and it could be a distinctly different stressor for you. I think it's really tough. Obviously, there are some like sweeping changes they can do. There's extreme things like shark tanks and shorter situational rounds, wrestling practices, what have you, which at large will be different training stressors than one another. But it's tough because a day that might be intended to be an easier day, you have one of those athletes in there who that day rolls with a few people around their level. And like what I've noticed is the hardest rounds tend to be those people that are just like at your level, slightly better or slightly worse, right? You're not getting steamrolled and you're not doing the steamrolling, right? Um, it can be kind of tough like that where it's supposed to be. I've had guys come in like, some of the camps that I'm coordinating more closely with Andre, it'll be a lighter day and I'll have a dude who's like peeling himself off the mats to then come into the weight room, and it was supposed to be an easier day and it was structured that way, but the way he got his partners that day, it just didn't pan out like that, and that can make it kind of tough.
Dude, I feel like that's like the benefit of like a lot of these like Eastern Bloc countries of like, back in the day, like the Soviet Union, they had these like hyper synergized systems of all their athletes are doing the same thing. Their skill training is here, their strength training is here. And even if it wasn't super optimal or optimized, everybody was at least on the same page of like, you are all on the Soviet team and we're all like making all this work together in tandem. Versus I feel like the American system is like, even at like NFL, NBA level, like there is some work between like the head coach of like, the Bulls and then like Michael Jordan's trainer, but like it's not this like hyper synergized like beast that it is in a lot of these other countries. I feel like as Americans we just like, you do this, and it's not super like integrated as well as some of these other countries.
I think
Like,
football does a damn good job, though. I will say.
Say that again. Sorry.
I think football does a pretty damn good job.
Football
yeah,
does. Football does.
But I think it also comes to like the American versus Soviet. So I used to wrestle with Vlad Marashenko, super high level wrestler. He literally came like it was like Soviet Russia when he was there, and I was trying to pick his brain. Like English isn't his first language, and he doesn't really understand the exercise physiology. But I was trying to like pick his brain to see what he did. But like the big thing was like, I mean, he from a young age was picked. Like they identified him. You're going to be a wrestler, and like he essentially developed versus in the US, like if you're wrestling, you go to like, really there isn't like good wrestling until like middle school, maybe. But then, you're in middle school for 4 years, you have a coach, then you go to high school, you have a new coach, then you go to college, you have a new coach. So they're not really focused on developing you. Like they have 4 years, they're just going to get max out what they can while they have you.
Yeah, I've heard that same thing.
a
Yeah.
lot of things that people forget is one of my clients was just in Uzbekistan and he's watching how the kids train for judo, and I think it was just mainly judo. And these kids come in, they don't go to school. Many of them they're just selected for camps and they're training, between 5 to 8 hours a day of just training as kids, and they just do that, 5 to 7 days a week for years on end. So you just build up so much, like it's just you just compound interest those years and years of training. And it's not like they're sparring all the time, but they've just got that years ahead of skill development from a young age. And people forget that. They just go, "Oh, I need to try and catch up." But it's like it's so hard to catch up to these guys who have literally been doing it high, and they've got high level coaches around them as well. Because many of them, the guys who have made the Olympics or whatever, they just go into coaching and they'll just start coaching these kids from the grassroots up. And like like you said before, they'll synergistically they'll be doing they'll have like all the hats around, all the coaches are around in the same area, looking at their strength coaching from kids with gymnastics and obviously weights once they get to a certain age, and just making sure all the volumes align. Which is obviously with combat sports, people from jiu-jitsu, MMA, whatever, they don't have that. So they're just trying to, like we spoke about on our last podcast, Alex, they're just trying to wear all the hats at once when it's obviously a very difficult job to synergize all together.
I will say, man, having been like spent a lot of time around Atos and AOJ, They do get these kids that start getting homeschooled. Like they're really structuring their entire life around jujitsu early. And I'm not going to talk about some of the other implications there.
Yeah, yeah.
But but I mean, and sure, they don't necessarily have the people with all those hats, but how some of these bigger teams, even in terms of like continuity of coaching, right? Like at a young age, when these kids really structure everything around jujitsu, they're getting a lot more face time with their head coach there. They're actually getting somebody invested in their development and stuff. And I do, I don't work with kids all that much nowadays. It's just tough. It's really draining. But man, like you look at some of them and like the Rotolos, they were it was wild to me. Like right before Ty had that first run at ADCC, I remember training with them when they were still like gray belts and stuff, right? And I remember like they're like setting up footlocks on me, and I'm like denying them purely because I'm just a grown man. And I remember there was a time where they actually came, it was around, yeah, it was right around that ADCC run, where I trained with them, and like Cade broke my face with a buggy choke. And I was just like literally I passed him to side control, and it was before it really got popularized again. I felt pressure. I didn't know if it was like he's holding on to a guillotine from the far side, so I lined up my chin on the ribs, and like my jaw popped like a few times. And I'm like, this is a child.
Yeah.
And I couldn't like chew and close my mouth for like a week.
Holy shit.
It's kind of wild when they have that structure and that continuity. Like the Mendez bros were taking like a really intentful focus on them for a while, and then Andre did once they got over to Atos, and it really shows. They're special.
Dude, I feel like the best time, in the same way that language is best learned, the best time to gain adaptation specifically for skill development is as a child. Like when you watch some of these kids grapple, specifically like Mika Galvalo, it just seems like he moves differently than other people who are doing jujitsu. Like when you watch Gordon move, it's like A, B, C, but Mika moves from like A to Z and then back to like, T. Like he's doing things that are almost like magical, right? It doesn't seem like just here to here to here. It's just like it's almost unteachable. And there's something to be said about learning the language of jujitsu or any combat sport, whether it be wrestling as a kid, Olympic weightlifting, as a Chinese, like 12-year-old being handpicked based on your biomechanics and learning that skill growing up and then honing it as an adult versus trying to learn it as an adult and hone it.
Yeah, for sure. I even think, dude, so many people just are like, oh, wrestlers are different. I think the biggest difference is that wrestling, oftentimes, you have the D1 wrestler, the former D1 wrestler that rolls through and trains jujitsu for the first time. And you're like, how do they like, deny all these moves? How are they so good at just recognizing danger and like staying out of it? The thing that isn't talked about enough is that they've been doing that sport from such a young age that this is just a slightly, it's an adjacent version of grappling. Yes, wrestling does have some unique like training principles and stuff, but it's largely the fact that they're doing structured training and skill acquisition at a very young age oftentimes.
Yep.
You don't see guys at the D1 level that just sort of picked it up at high school age and started there. They've been doing it for a
Yeah.
decade already.
And it's
Yeah.
simple things too. Oh, so you go, Ron.
I'll just, mine's quick. Like I played basketball all growing up. I haven't touched a basketball in 5 years. I can go down to a 24-hour fitness. I'm 6'3" and athletic. I will smoke those dorks at 24-hour fitness. But if you put a basketball in a 29-year-old's hand right now who's never played basketball and you try to teach him the skill of basketball,
No.
he will eternally suck.
Uh,
So why it's crazy because why do people think it's different for combat sports?
I don't
It's like
know.
like I've got a hard on for some of these Eastern European wrestlers, especially the Greco-Roman guys. You look at like Artur Alexanian, and like the way they set up their hand fighting, and I just can't imagine how strong like one of those 99 kg Olympic Greco-Roman wrestlers would actually feel. Like people can't fathom how fucking strong they would feel if they were to collar tie you or if they were to hand fight you. Also, like trying to learn proper hand fighting sequences it would be they just wouldn't be able to teach you. It would just take too long because it's
Dude,
just it's Like they're like,
Sorry.
oh, I just do this. I strip the grip here, and I just do this, and I put my weight. Like to get the feeling of how to actually apply weight to people and hand fight correctly. It just takes so long, and it's such a feeling based thing. And to your point, I think that it's best learned as a kid. And obviously, you can learn, you can get very good at it for sure. But to get it to the level of the highest level, it's very difficult.
Dude, like we've all had the same experience in jiu-jitsu where you encounter somebody of extreme high caliber wrestling and you actually wrestle with them, like not do jiu-jitsu, like wrestle with them. And like you can be way stronger than them and you just get bodied. And you're like, what the fuck is this?
They
It's
just have
almost
better
like
functional strength.
Yeah.
it's but it's weird. It's like almost like being your strength means nothing in that circumstance.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. Like you'd be pushing them and you're just getting so tired, and they're just like collar tying you, ragdolling you, hand fighting you, and just walking. We have this guy called Silvio, and he just everyone who comes in, whether it's Joseph Chan, any of the best guys, he literally just walks them to every corner of the room with Greco-Roman style. He just fucking turns them, twists them, and just fucks them up. It's crazy to watch.
I think Travis Stevens was saying like he's like when he does jujitsu with jujitsu people, or he does judo with jujitsu people, he does it much different because he's like if I do judo with jujitsu people like I do with judo people, we wouldn't be friends anymore.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Dude, I hand fought with Gordon the other day for like 5 minutes after practice, and he just like eviscerated me without even trying. like just the off balancing and the turning of the shoulders and snapping my head down and just like things were happening where I just feel like you got put in a washing machine and you just turned it on the spin cycle and you're like, what the fuck is, and then just foot sweep onto my butt, just like I look so stupid. And it's weird having that experience because like I can go into any open mat across the country and like largely just like dog walk the average grappler, and then just getting that same sort of like, oh, there's levels to this, like pimp slap back to you is like, oh my God.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I want to sort of backtrack on a line. I wrote it down as I think Roman said it, but it was something along the lines that we were like comparing, someone like in wrestling starting really young, and then like why do we think it's different in jiu-jitsu? This is actually something that I've talked to like a lot with some of like the coaches that I work with, the guys that run their own programs, and like in jiu-jitsu, there's this structure, right, where you sign up at a gym, and even if you start at a later age or whatever, there's this like mantra of like, okay, keep training and you'll get better. And if you have an aspiration to be at a certain level, the answer is always, oh, just train more and you'll get there, right? And I think it's sort of like the for-profit business model that we're in, right? Where like you don't want your coach to be like, bro, you're never gonna be anything. You started at 25. Like, what are you doing? Right. But like in every other sport, at every single level, there's cuts, right? Like, and you even hear like, how Jordan responded to being cut from a team in high school and how he responded to that, right? But like there are people who will tell you no. And in jujitsu, you don't, it's just a bunch of yes men, and they're gonna dress it up different ways. They're gonna tell you, oh, just train like this, and then you can go and win XYZ tournament. And there are these people that are like perpetual competitors that like no one ever told them no. They get sold these other fantasies. Maybe they switch teams because they weren't getting the attention they needed. But in reality, no one was ever like, bro, you're not making the freshman team.
No. Dude,
You know?
imagine being 27 and trying to just like show up at a D1 football program and going, let me on the team, boys. Let me on
Right.
the roster.
No, but that even happens way before. Like you feel that heartbreak in middle school, right? Like you got aspirations of being a wide receiver, and it's your parents are both 5'7". Like they're just like, bro, okay, maybe you can try this position, but they're like, someone tells you no. And I just feel like in combat sports, it's kind of, I don't know if it's like the belt system. I don't know if it's this belief in technique over every other quality. But yeah, you just never have someone that's just like, hey, dude, I'm gonna be real with you. You don't got it.
Dude, I think it's like the martial arts like mantra of like the only thing that matters is the art, right? And it's like the shift, the cultural shift of like sensei martial art, kung fu, Bruce Lee into like, hey, grappling is a physically demanding sport that requires genetics, athleticism, and also your hard work, but mostly the first two. Just like we don't look at DK Metcalf on the Seahawks and go like he's just, his perfect technique. It's amazing. No, it's just like holy shit, he runs fast and jumps high.
Oh, dude,
But
and then you hear about his diet and shit, like how he breaks all these
eats
rules. Like,
Skittles.
yeah,
Yeah.
he has Skittles all the time. He's on the Steelers now, by the way.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
kind of wild. I don't know. It sometimes it's like toxic positivity, you know?
And
Yeah, I'm in the
people,
same boat, dude. I've had to have that conversation with myself where like, I was an athlete growing up. Like I did, hard physical sports. Like I'm a good athlete, but also like I need to like sort of come to terms with the fact that like, dude, I'm a 29-year-old man. I started jiu-jitsu at 24. Like I'm not Mika Galvalo, unfortunately. Like let's be fucking real. You know what I mean? And I'll always be competitive, always try to compete at the best that I can. But having this sort of like pipe dream of like, I'm gonna go be a ADCC world champion at like 32 when I started at, mid 20s is a little bit like it's not even a little bit, it's borderline schizophrenic to think that like that's gonna happen for you.
Yeah, but
Like
Cobrinha started at 21.
yeah.
Well,
I actually,
one of the things that I noticed, because like, so when I graduated college, I am a not athletic, nerdy dude, but I, started jujitsu. I went into fighting, and one of the things where I had that awakening was, and maybe it's different in MMA because you have to like put in so much and you get so little. And I'd be on, I'd go train with this pro fight team, and you could see there was the people who get in the UFC, like who are obviously super talented and super skilled, but most people were just, especially like this was like 10 years ago or even more. Like most people are doing these local shows, like in MMA, they're getting their face broken for like maybe $1,000. And you're like, am I like, do you really want to try to go that route? Or like, you're going to know pretty quick, like when you go with guys in the UFC, you're like, I'm not UFC level. So that was also why that hurts my ability as a competitor, where I'm like, I've had friends that are literally delusional. They're like, I am the best. And they're like a purple belt, which if you look at people like John Jones, like granted he is the best, but he believed he was the best. Same thing with like Ronda Rousey and stuff. So I feel like having that delusion is actually like super important. But I
100%.
did not have that delusion, so I was like, I'm not the best. I'm done with this shit.
No, but it depends on the people around you too. Because like in MMA, if your coach is delusional and is a yes man, he's gonna get you killed before you even make it to the pro level, right?
true.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
so MMA, you do also have it maybe not the cuts, right? But if you're like, all right, coach, I had my one amateur fight, I'm ready to be a pro. They'll be like, you'll die out there, you know? So MMA does have that reality. I think it's just like the head injury part of it, right? Because like if you just have one of your students take a super fight in jujitsu that they have no business taking, like, okay, cool. They
They'll
tap a
just
little
lose.
weight on the
Yeah.
arm bar, they nurse the elbow for a little bit, and they're fine. But if you're a coach known for sending your dudes out to slaughter in MMA, like you won't have students for very long. So I think again, there's like these other things in other sports that prevent them from just filling you with these delusions of grandeur. But in jujitsu, it's just not there, you know?
Yeah, even in the military, right? Like there's the regular Joes, right? You just join the military, you get in, but like we don't send those guys on a helicopter to fast rope onto a target, break down a door, and kidnap somebody. You have to go through a selection to do that. And it's like there is no in MMA, like you said, like a lot of teams like have like tryouts for even their MMA team, but like in jiu-jitsu, like you said, it's just like oh, you want to fight to win match against, like the world's, gold medalist at adult black belt? Like, yeah, dude, go get in there, dude, run it. They're not gonna do that to some amateur MMA fighter. Like that would literally be like criminal.
Dude,
And we do it in jiu-jitsu all the time.
I used to tell Dom, like when Dom started doing like competitions at Masters and I mean he was still tearing it up at adult, but he would jump into a couple at Masters and I would like afterwards, I'd watch his match with him and I'd be like, dude, this math teacher just went and told his students that he was going to go out there and test himself against the best, and then just gets like Uchi, like, eats an Uchimata, gets his face dragged across the mat. You know what I mean? Dom doesn't even cover him. He lets him stand back up to throw him and highlight reel the guy. Like, it's kind of wild that, like, in this participation sport, you can just sign up for whatever and go against these like hammers.
Yeah, I
Five
think
months, baby. Let's
what
go.
that,
Masters won.
so that's what's crazy about Master Worlds is like because Master Worlds for the most part, I mean there are very serious athletes that do it, but it's considered like if you're Masters, you're like a recreational guy. But now there's like you have people like Lovato who's like doing Masters too. You're like that's not even fair. You know what I mean?
Bro,
But so when they have these people that like they're like I want to go do Master Worlds, I was like you should be winning like regional tournaments, like progressing to regional IBGF tournaments, then gone. There's these people that like they're like they don't do any tournaments and they go straight to Master Worlds. And I'm like, you realize that's the literally the biggest tournament in the world.
Dude, that happens at adult nogi. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think people realize how many of like you get like not you guys, but like how
sure,
many of them are just cannon fodder.
sure.
Like it's when I look at the bracket, it's like I know these guys because I've seen them and we've all been doing pans, nationals, worlds,
Sure.
and like the rest of you dudes are just cannon fodder for the bracket.
Yeah.
And like I have that same experience, like training at smaller gyms. They'll be like, competitor. Like when I was in college, I was competing like literally every month, just like at least one or two competitions. And then I would be like, I'm going to prepare for Nogi Worlds. And then there'd be a couple of people who never compete. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do a camp for Nogi Worlds too. And I'm like, don't. I don't know what you're doing.
Mike, to sort of piggyback off of that,
Sure.
I also think there's this thing that a lot of people, it seems to slip their mind, or maybe they just choose not to focus on it. Master Worlds, I think through the colored belts is a lot of what you said, right? You
Yeah,
got
sure.
Master 2 at brown belt. These guys all started late, right?
Yeah.
But if you're gonna sign up for Master 2 black belt, dude, I like every year I watch Peter Frank in these highlights. This dude is still insanely athletic. He's hitting flying submit. I just imagine this poor dude that like just got his black belt, started
Yeah.
training at,
Yeah.
28, 29, and he signs it and he gets Peter Frank and gets like flying armbarred in like 12 business seconds. It's crazy.
So funny enough, so I actually went against Peter Frank in Nogi is Masters 2 Nogi Worlds in the semifinals, and I think I performed better than I probably should have, honestly. Like
When was
I got
this?
2023, I think. I ended up getting DQ'd for a Marip, which is I mean anyway, but it's funny.
Nerd.
So I win and I got it farther than I thought, and then I had 5 minutes to prepare for Peter Frank. So it's like I would wish I could have like game planned for him. I'm like, all I know is he's good at flying arm bars, don't reach. So I think I tried to flying armbar him just to spite.
That's so tight.
Yeah. I mean, so I can say that technically he didn't beat me. I beat myself.
Yeah. You
That's
didn't
so
lose.
tight.
Yeah.
But like,
DQ
yeah,
on
you have like
purpose.
you have like the fucking Meow brothers like doing like Master One, like all across America, just winning opens, just absolutely eviscerating people. And it's like, this is the Masters division, dude. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, black belt, it's a bit different. But that's even Mike, you're also like you're not the guy that I'm talking about at black belt. That's
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
even you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you've actually been in it for a while. I'm talking about
Sure.
the guy that's a fresh black
Yeah,
belt.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that Peter Frank has been a black belt
Correct.
longer than this dude's been training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are where it's just kind of like, my God, you think you're
Yeah.
going out to test yourself. But yet,
Sure.
dude, if you're not consistently taking home gold medals at opens,
Yeah.
like sometimes, yeah, these people signing up for these like majors, it's kind of
Yeah.
like it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
delusional.
Yeah.
The
I
crazy
got
thing,
sorry, I got a friend and he is like he's 39 or 40. But he's like one of those guys, like he's obsessed. He's only been jujitsu for like 7 years, but like twice a day for twice a day, 6 days a week. So despite being an older guy, like he's like soup and he'll win like everything that he does. But he gets to Master World or not Master World, there's Nogi Worlds. And he's only been training jujitsu for 7 years, and he went against a guy who I think had been a black belt for like 22 years, right? And he actually, honestly, to give my buddy credit, he went to a ref decision, like, you know, but like just think about the time difference. Like it's not even fair from a time perspective.
Yeah, it's also kind of a wild thing. Like, I mean, it is crazy that, that skill gap, but I grew up wrestling, and in wrestling there weren't all of these divisions and subdivisions. There were just those mismatches, and you just dealt with it.
Yeah.
You're going against a dude who, at the high school level, he's, multiple time all state, and you're a freshman just like, barely working your way through puberty, and this dude with man strength is just gonna like completely like hammer you. It's kind of wild how in jiu-jitsu you kind of get shielded from that for a while, and then all of a sudden, yeah, like, masters black belt level, that stuff's gone.
Bro, my first white belt competition in Australia, I think it was like under 100 kgs no gi. I went up against this Turkish wrestling champion, and he was in the white belt division, and his ears were absolutely fucked. He was just a tank. He was like 5'7", and but the coach is like, oh God, like he shouldn't be doing this. But anyway, you got the match now. Just go out and fucking fight. Whatever you do, don't underhook him. First thing I did, collar tie, underhook. Bro, he fucking suplexed me. I landed like face into the floor. He got like kind of pinned me. I got back up, and his coach is like, okay, maybe like pull guard. I go collar tie, underhook again. He fucking suplexed me and like got me with a arm triangle within like 20 seconds. And he obviously he just fucking obliterated every single person in that fucking division. And he's just sandbagging.
Dude, it's wild. I actually here to share my story like that. 2016 Pans at adult blue belt. I so I don't normally check my brackets, especially like, blue belt. Like, I don't know, there was no point, and they were huge. And I actually did check for whatever reason for Pans that year. And I saw Edward Ruth in there, right? And I've always wrestled and stuff. I was like, but and then I saw it was like I want to say it was like somewhere out of Fresno. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not Ed Ruth. Like that'd be wild. And start warming up in the bullpen that day, and I look over and I'm like, oh no, that's fucking Ed Ruth. And what's wild is, he was on my side of the bracket, worked my way up. It was semifinals, and I watched him skunk this kid like 32 to nothing, just raw athleticism. And at the time, he had just signed with Bellator. It was I think it was either after his first fight or right before his first fight. And then yeah, I've got Ed Ruth. And at the time, at Blue Belt, I was relying a lot on my wrestling, which didn't really hold a candle to and I remember right off the bat, like slap bump, and from like not only were we were separated. It was like, when you see those dudes do like a penetration skip from like 12 feet out, and I was like in disbelief. And he starts to like, I sprawl, he starts to sky me. We go out of bounds, and I'm just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is luckily, I think the reason that I got into content creation was really just to bury the fact that the first search result, when you put my name into Google for like a year after
Exactly what
that,
you're talking about.
was that match with Edward. Yeah, dude, he skunked me like 11-0. It was brutal, dude. I remember at one point, yeah, like there was just this repeated, I was like, if we're on the feet, this dude is going to take me down. And like my defensive wrestling is the best part of my wrestling. It was like I've never done it before. And then what's funny is he actually went against my teammate in the final. I don't know if you guys remember Connor DeAngelis. He was a freaking
Yeah.
stud. And Connor like pulled guard early, played a super smart game, actually managed to sweep him. Then they reset. He stood up, was able to pull again, and the match ended with Connor like holding on to quarter guard, just holding on to his foot as Ed Ruth is trying to like rip his leg free, and Connor's already celebrating on the bottom. What's even funnier, we get to the podium, and we go to get on the podium, and Ed Ruth didn't come out of the locker room. I was just in there. And they made me go back to go get him because I was like, oh yeah, he's in the locker room. They're like, okay, well, we can't like take the picture or anything until he's out here, so go get him. And I'm like, oh, fucking great. I go back in there, and I kid you not, he answered me like, me asking him to go out there was like I asked him something stupid. He's like, dude, I have sponsors. I can't be on a podium where I'm not on the top. And I'm like, thanks, Ed. And I just went back out there, and I'm like, yeah, he's not coming out here. And Yeah, it was wild, man. Like there those levels to it. It was even in the gi, he still just out athleted me like hard.
Yeah, dude, I don't think people have that experience who didn't play sports growing up until they get to jujitsu sometimes. And it's like this like earth-shattering moment for them that they're like, what do you mean that there's like a God-given talent in this world, you know? And like I remember getting that when I was I don't know, seventh grade, like AAU basketball, and there was a literal girl, a 6'6" black girl who was playing on the opposite team, and we're like a bunch of little like white Christian boys on our AAU team. And I remember like stealing a pass and going to hit a layup, and like I throw the ball up to like go off the backboard, and then just like the ball just slams off the backboard, and I'm like, what the fuck? And this 6'6" black woman hits the ground next to me, and I'm like, ah. And she just like batted that shit out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, right. I mean, at the time I was short. I didn't grow till later in life. I was like 5'4". I'm like, oh, right. Okay. I got it.
Yeah, I think part of that is like the whole like technique beats strength or whatever. There, obviously there are there's like those equalizers, right? And like when someone's untrained in jujitsu, we've all seen the guy who comes in, he looks like Roman but has no experience and and gets absolutely mollywopped. But then again, as technique starts to even out, those physical tools are still super, super relevant.
I mean,
You go,
the
Mike.
biggest thing we can say with that is you take someone like Gordon Ryan. Obviously, he's like one of the most technical grapplers, if not the most, and he's very vocal about taking steroids. Why is he taking steroids? Because physical attributes matter. Like they matter.
This is the thing that I've never understood about the whining about PEDs while simultaneously saying, because it's the same group that says what bodybuilders do or powerlifters do is stupid. And it's like, okay, buddy, let me sit you down. If I were to shoot you up with whatever you think Gordon is taking or any of these guys are taking, would you go and do your functional workouts? Or would you maximize what those PEDs do and go do hard like lifting and resistance training, some sprints, jumps, some power cleans? Like, which one would you do if we did sauce you up with whatever you think that everybody's on, And it's like, we can be honest. You're not going to take the little functional patterns cable. You know what I mean? Like,
What do people, there's a question for the group. Why do people have such a hard on for rotational exercises or building rotational force? Who wants to take the reins on this one?
Well,
go. No, you go.
Well, I mean, because I can explain what I think, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I can explain what I think, and I think their understanding the functional patterns is a poor understanding of kinesiology. But there's a concept like if you guys have ever watched strikers, same thing with throwers. It's called kinetic linking, right? So if I'm going to throw a punch or throw a ball, throw a javelin, the power comes from the ground reaction force. I push off the ground. It transfers through. You need to have a rigid core, and then your arm releases, right? So I think what they think is, like that their fascia training is like transferring the energy through. But I'm like, that's just a poor understanding of kinesiology. Like that's just not how it works. Like while a tendon does transfer force from the muscle to the bone, that's kind of where it stops. So I think what they're looking at is they're like, well, rotation is functional, so I'm going to just add a load. But this is like the stuff we've all been seeing where sport specific, well, people will just load sport specific movements, which really isn't sport specific. They're just doing these, silly things that doesn't actually transfer.
I also think that like while most training, general training for almost across the board, all sports should kind of look the same, the weighted equation for any given sport is going to change based on the demands of the sport, right? So like a baseball player's training, while might appear to look the same, they're going to have a higher demand on something like rotation. And so I think what they see is they see a bunch of athletes who do have demands on certain things, not just rotation. You see athletes in like basketball or baseball or football that have like a super high demand from something like a sprint or a jump. And then they go, well, if they're doing it, I must do it a lot too. But in jiu-jitsu, it's like, what are the demands of our sport? Like, dude, we're on the fucking ground. We're not sprinting. And I agree that like sprinting develops good general adaptations and qualities, especially like rigidity of the hamstring. But like, dude, we're not sprinting. It doesn't need to be this major block of our training because it's not a demand of our sport. And so I think that a lot of the misconceptions about like any particular part of a good GPP or even some sport specific stuff is misconstrued when you actually look at like what are the demands of the sport.
Correct.
I got a little something I want to piggyback off that. I think with a lot of these FP guys, so a lot of them don't like the ones that are actually trying to think, don't train a sport themselves, right? And if you take somebody who's relatively inactive or unathletic and you start to give them rotational movements, like they'll feel better, right? So there's that like immediate observational thing that they're experiencing, right? So that's powerful for them. And then that gets further backed up by the fact that they then also have some of their token athletes that then they give them rotational stuff, which by way of like that LeBron video that I posted yesterday and everything. Like when you have an elite athlete, they can get away with a lot, right? So, but they're getting the reinforcement at two levels. They're getting the reinforcement themselves because they don't train a sport and rotation kind of feels good, right? And they feel kind of athletic because they're doing it. But then also it's getting reinforced by whatever, Kyle Dake or whoever else they have. They're like, well, he does a ton of rotation and it does well for him. And that sort of reinforces it as well. But my counterexample to that is like Barry Bonds, right? Like when he was juicing, right, and was cranking home runs every single game. That dude, like, if you took Barry Bonds, who, by the way, he's rotating all the time already, you're not introducing some novel stimulus. If you did more rotation with Barry Bonds, you're not really going to move the needle that much. But if you add 100 pounds to Barry Bonds' squat, and like Mike said, you've got those ground reaction forces and stuff, right? And he is also taking these lozenges, testosterone lozenges that is just turning him into a freaking monster. He's gonna start cranking those home runs. I think it's also like, for whatever reason, they refuse to accept that a sagittal, which is a like terrible classification of a ton of these movements, anyways, but a bilateral sagittal movement cannot translate to rotation. And I actually think when we're looking at rotational athletes, if you look at like Werner Gunther and how he trained, he wasn't doing a shit ton of rotation. Bro was doing like repeat, like broad jump plyos. He was doing those jumps up the stadium stairs. Like that's not rotational in nature. He's jumping in a straight line. But that doesn't mean that it has zero translation to his rotational event, And I think that disconnect is just something that I don't know if there's even a language that we can speak and like get to a common ground and convince them that like these physical specimens that don't hammer a ton of additional rotational work outside of their sport can still translate so well to it. And I actually saw there was like this breakdown of Werner Gunther and like his like slow twitch to fast twitch distribution. I don't know if you guys have seen that. They used him as a case study. But he actually through his training was able to develop a ton, like he completely changed his distribution of type 2 to
Wow.
type 1 fibers. Like, and then even after he then had like another biopsy like 10 years after he retired, and he went back to being super type 1 dominant. Like the dude, by all means, if he was in that Soviet bloc where they were doing biopsies of him at 4 years old, they wouldn't have said this dude's going to be an elite thrower. And through by way of his training, which was by all means like phenomenal and not heavily focused on rotation, was able to actually develop the physical qualities needed to rotate and produce a
Mhm.
ton of power at the highest level.
Well, I think there's two things I want to. So the first one is like, there's a lot of studies that look at boxers, right? So if you guys have ever worked with a striker, someone like you teach someone striking, very rigid, they don't know how to rotate, and then as you work from like a novice to an experienced boxer, they display that kinetic linking better, but that's the sport, right? So I think when it comes to sport specific strength and conditioning, it's not like Roman was saying, it's about understanding the demand and adding things that maybe you're not getting in the training room, right? Because like you're not going to develop maximal strength in on the mats. You're just not. You might, I mean, even though I do a lot of isometric training, like you actually do get that in jujitsu, like some of it, right? And um, you can say like some anaerobic or aerobic conditioning is going to happen in the sport, but then again, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't. Big thing, maximal training. So I think for these guys that are doing all these rotational things, they're like, well, the sport, if it's a rotational sport, means we have to train rotation. But you're like, if that's your sport, how much rotation are you already getting? If you take a pitcher, like how much are they fucking throwing? you know? So maybe it'd be better for them to train other things that they're not getting with the sport. But what you were saying then, the second point is when will we get them to listen? Well, the fact is they're not going to
Never.
because, like, well, because I mean, like, literally yourself, like the functional patterns guy, whatever his name is, Naughty. Like, I think there was a comment with you where he's like, I'm going to ignore the evidence. He's like, I'm going to rely on my intuition because it's, which is like I was like,
Source, trust me, bro.
I'm like, this sounds like the raving of a madman.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, his quote was, "I have the best speculation in human history." I'm like, I don't even know how to talk to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, I think the problem is like you're trying to, and this is my problem with people that comment dumb stuff on my Instagram, is I'm trying to apply logic to somebody that is logicless.
Yes.
And so by trying to lower yourself to their level of like bandwidth on what they're talking about, we're not even having the same conversation. Like, I'm never going to change your mind. And one of the things about like being like evidence-based or being just a good like knowledge source in general is the willingness to change your mind. When I started lifting weights, I was just doing like starting strength, and I was like, bodybuilding, pussy shit. Also, hypertrophy is like 8+ and strength is like 1 to 5. That's it. We literally had it on the wall in Ranger Regiment up on the gym wall of like, it was like, are you training for the right things? And it was like 8 to 15 hypertrophy. Looks cool, but does it go? Like shit like that. And I'm like, that's what I believe. That's what I thought. That's what I was raised in and steeped in. Now, granted, we had amazing strength coaches, but this was like 10 years ago. And like the willingness to like, for me to not to toot my own horn, but like go and like try to update whatever it is, like that is my current understanding, to try to like look beyond what I know and accept like I'm wrong and let's find new stuff, is something like you have to have the mindset to be willing to even lose an argument, because like they think that they're winning the argument because they have no willingness to ever accept information, evidence, studies, anything, because they go like Naughty, like I'm not going to rely on the evidence, I'm going to go with what I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's a problem in general. Like people just aren't willing to have discussions anymore. Like that's why politics, like it just like let's not even talk about politics. This never goes well.
Right.
But I mean, in the training world, like I mean, for me, like I can always there's a lot of things I've changed my mind on, but I think that's like the point of science. Like what does the evidence show? I had a idea. Was it right? Was it wrong? And I mean, for me, that's what makes like my professional career fun, is that curiosity of like, let me try to get better, not just be right. Like, who gives a shit about being right? I want to be better and better and better. I shouldn't be doing the same stuff I did 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
And
that was
I think, go ahead, Alex.
that was like Evan. I think his name's Evan Rutledge, Girth Brooks or whatever.
Yeah,
On
yeah. I love that
yeah.
guy.
So I posted that thing of Kevin Haynes where he was talking about how load can teach you more efficient technique, right? And Evan disagreed. And so he DM'd me because he didn't want to like blow me up in the comments. And I'm like, and he's like being careful with it. I'm like, dude, I'm not sensitive. If you disagree with me, I want to hear it. And like I want to know your side of things. I respect obviously what you do and what you know. Like, let's talk about it. And it just turned out like, I wasn't saying that load is the best teacher all the time. It's just that it can be, right? And we
Yeah.
actually found common ground, whatever. But like I opened it up with where I was like, dude, if you think I'm wrong, just tell me. I want to learn. And if I'm wrong on something, I'll post again and walk it back.
And,
Like I
and
want to know the best stuff.
And dude, honestly, most of the time the answer lies somewhere in the middle, right? It's like, is load a good teacher in the sense of like, should everybody have identical squat form? No, because the load will teach you like, oh, I have long femurs. There's not a shot that I'm keeping my torso vertical, right? But in the same way, there are general guidelines to doing a high bar back squat with like longer femurs that you should probably adhere to, right? Like there's good tenets of technique. But like I said, like I'm not gonna look like Lu Xiaojun when I high bar back squat. I'm 6'3" with a short torso and long femurs. It's not gonna happen. And the load will teach you that. Try to keep an upright torso with long femurs. It ain't gonna happen.
Dude, it's like the conspiratorial or like almost religious fervor that some of these people in these like ideologies or cults have. Like, dude, Alex Bromley did a great YouTube video on functional patterns where he pulled up it actually made me not want to do my long form hit piece that where I was gonna share my DM thread with Nowdy because that DM thread ended with him. Man, this was okay. It was actually related to martial arts. So at one point he was like, "Oh man," he's like trying to play the nice guy, and he's like, "Oh, like huge respect. I see that you're a black belt. Like that must have taken dedication." I'm like, "Yeah. Do you do any martial arts?" And he's like, "Oh well." I study the movements and blah blah blah, but I don't spar because I have too many dysfunctions. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Wait,
like,
what?
No way he said that.
listen to this. So I go, all right. So I'm gonna, for the sake of this conversation, let's accept that you're right. Let's accept that dysfunctions work the way that you think and that fixing them prevents you from experiencing any chance of injury. We're also talking about fighting another human being where they are actively trying to hurt you. So putting off this like initiation of sparring and actually learning the art until you fix these dysfunctions, even if you do and you can't hurt yourself, your partner can still hurt you and they're going to actively try to. So like I'm like, when are you allowed to start training? His response killed me. I didn't even respond to it. I was so blown away. He's like, "Well, first you have to understand that my central goal is to live well past 200 years. And to do that and to get, dude, I kid you not, this is he said this
200 years old.
unironically, he goes to live well past 200 years and here's the kicker and get more athletic the whole time.
Oh my God.
And to do that through moving the right way. And when you know that your movement is going to let you live that long, you can pick up side quests whenever you want. I'm in no rush to start jujitsu because by the time I solve all these dysfunctions, I'll have so much time." And Bromley did a YouTube video where now actually in open like discussions, there's videos of Nowdy saying that he thinks that through proper movement, he can get people to live to 200 or 300 years. He's insane. It's like a childlike fantasy.
This is the point, you know. It's like you're trying to apply logic to a logicless scenario. It can never work. It's like trying to do math with colors or something. I mean, honestly, you can't because color theory. But like you're trying to apply something that we can at least. I mean, science isn't perfectly quantifiable. But we do our best, and it's like trying to apply this like numerical quantifiable thing to something that's like artsy fartsy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, I got a client, so I'm going to run. So this is just when I wanted to talk about the science of fascia. But either way, I apologize. I got to run. Thanks, guys.
Fuck. Later.
Good to see you, bro. Bro, that is the craziest fucking thing I've ever had. Lived to 200.
Damn it, dude. We lost our only scientist on fascia.
I know. Now it's just 3 idiots.
That is crazy, Charles.
It's just when people say, "Oh, I'm here to study the movement." That's when you know you've just got an absolute retard on your case. like that guy you always hit up, Roman, the guy who the charlatan who's openly scamming people.
Oh my God.
And he just reposts the same video all the time. It's like when I started to integrate my movements and focus on rotational power, everything changed for me. And granted, he is athletic, but it's like, dude, you obviously played some kind of sport, lifting weights. Like, fuck off. You've done track sports or football or something your whole life, and now you come up with this.
He's brilliant with his marketing in the sense of he found out the same thing I think we all kind of found out. He's just shameless about it in the sense of if you apply, which is like appealing to your own authority, which I definitely do sometimes for fun, and also controversy, you can kind of convince the unknown person or somebody who's not super educated in a topic about really anything. He can show himself doing a backflip, a high knee, knocking somebody out in MMA and going, "Do you think that I would be able to do this if I train like a bodybuilder?"
Yeah.
No. And it's like, oh, okay.
He's just scripting and hooking, scripting and hooking.
So he's got the ethos of he's a professional MMA fighter combined with the he knows that he's using industry buzzwords to generate traffic on his page. And so he'll get hook, line, and sinker idiots like me going, "You're a fucking retard." And then he'll also get guys going, "No, you're an idiot, Roman. See, he's an MMA fighter and he's a pro and he knows what he's talking about. You go do a pro MMA, you don't know what you're talking about." And so he's developed this strategy of like what I was saying, the like a dirty secret of social media, which is value and controversy gets your stock high. But then what I found recently, because I skimmed across his page recently, is he made a post 2 days ago. He's got 145,000 followers. He made a post 2 days ago, 319 likes. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Something's not adding up here. How can you possibly have, 150,000 followers, but only 300 people care enough about your life that they'll just like your post? There was something it didn't really like click for me. And I'm like, I think this guy's also like, because he openly admits to scamming, I think he's buying his followers too.
No, I think what happens sometimes is when you hit one of those super viral posts, it could blow your followers out of proportion. Like let's say
That's true.
it steamrolls so quickly. And like this fella, I won't say his name. I'll say his name, Steven Sayun. He actually ended up blocking me because he thought I was copying him on social media. But as we were growing the same time, it was really weird. We'll get into that story in a second. We were just posting all the time. I even did a podcast with him, and I was saying, man, keep going. You're gonna. He said to me at one point, man, I'm sick of the social media shit. I'm just like I'm bored of it. I'm like, bro, we're both on 7,000 followers. Keep going, Steve. Honestly, the shit you're putting out is amazing. Then he did one post, and he grew to like I think it was like 150,000 followers, or like within like it must have been 6 months, maybe less, maybe 3 months from 7,000 to literally like 140, 150,000 followers.
Holy
And
shit.
it just happened off one post. And then I think you can, if you hit that so quickly but again it's an interesting point because I do look at people with big followings and you look at some and obviously not every post is going to bang,
Yeah.
but you look at some of them and you're like,
Yeah,
why?
don't look too closely at mine.
So,
Roman's like, oh man, who would get 300 followers or 300 likes on a post? I'm like,
no, because it's because to make videos that kind of bang all the time, it's hard work because you need this good script, you need a hook, it's a whole thing. And looking at Josh Sedage, I mean, shout out him. He put out some really good content, but you can see how he's kind of slacked off doing what worked for him to where
Yeah.
his content's at now. And it's like I find it really interesting when you look at people. It's like, dude, you work so hard to get to get to 100,000 followers or whatever it was. Why'd you take your foot off the brake? Because
Yeah.
content creation, you can't, you have to keep fucking, making interesting videos and finding a way that your message will engage with your audience.
Yeah, so let me just quick. It wasn't a reel, it was an actual like post carousel, which actually gets pushed mostly to your followers. That's why I was saying, like, what the fuck is this engagement? This makes no sense. But yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. Like, I can have a reel that flops. Like, that shit happens. That's social media. It is what it is. But I'm in the same boat. Like, I come across these accounts all the time that like I feel like they're just begun to phone it in, where they get to a certain number, or they get to a certain following, or they get comfortable and they're like, okay, I can kind of like, take my foot off the gas, relax a little bit, make a video here and there, but it's not really high effort. It's just to get something out there. And I'm trying my very best. And obviously I've only been at this since what fucking March, 5 months. So I'm trying my best not to fall into that trap.
yeah, here actually. All right. This is on topic and it might even be more on topic. I came across something pretty interesting that I didn't know how I wanted to present it as a post, but I think this is even better. This is a better format. So, I'm sure you guys have heard of our of the welcome member of our community, Derek Moneyberg, right? I got a question for you guys. What do you think is more phony? I got three big things here. So all of his posts get at least 35,000 likes, but they'll have single digit shares, right? He's got 4 point whatever million followers, right? So what's more phony, his following his black belt, or the fact that unironically, I've heard him claim that he's 10% body fat. Well, just for frame of reference, Roman, I know you're a little bit into a cut right now. What would you estimate your body? Yeah, give us that double bicep real quick. What would you estimate your body fat to be at right now?
12 to 13.
I was gonna
12
say,
to 13.
I
Well,
was gonna say 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Derek Moneyberg, he's got you beat. He's leaner than you. He's got more followers than you, and he's got a black belt, dude.
Kill
What
yourself,
out of
Roman.
those three? What's
Give
the
up.
most funny?
Just kill yourself, man.
Oh, okay. I'm going to approach this topic from a political stance, given that I am friends with guys that are in the same space as this gentleman.
Yeah, one that vouched for him being 10% body fat, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I plead the motherfucking fifth. I don't want to get face crushed at practice tomorrow.
Fair, fair. But yeah, I just thought that was wild, like to unironic and then to double down. Like, bro, it's okay that you're not 10 and like you lost a ton of weight. That's like good for you, but bro, you're not even in the right zip code.
What's it? I just want to know what he's paying for privates, man. I mean, just hit me up, hit me up, Derek Moneyberg. Like,
Dude,
come on,
same,
dude.
brother. Dude,
No, you guys aren't high enough ranked. Actually, you know what? That brings up a fun. So I was talking. I don't know if you guys know Keith Krikorian. Pretty damn good. Face of the UFC, BJJ.
He's okay.
But yeah, him and I were talking about it the other day, and like, there's also kind of this sad element, right? Where like there's so many there are so many we this whole podcast we're talking about like universal experiences that we've had in jiu-jitsu. We've all like we haven't even trained at the same places and we've all experienced a lot of the same shit, right? And like there's this element now of like, okay, there's a debate, right? Like what's the best for your skill development? And a lot of people like Joe Rogan was pretty vocal about this, about how like beating up blue belts is maybe the best thing for you because they're good enough to give you the right reactions, but you can fire off your offense and stuff, right? And then you've got this guy that's like backed himself into a corner now where he only trains with champions. He never actually gets to practice that element of jujitsu, which we know is like crucial. Like if you're going to compete, you got to be able to like fire off that offense. You've got to be dangerous. You've got to be one off balance doesn't work. You connect it to your next one, right? Like you don't get any of that just doing these privates against people that are better than you, right? Like and then even worse than that, like, man, when I travel, I love to just drop into a place. I don't even let them know. I drop into a place. All of a sudden, you start rolling. I actually loved it way more at lower belts, right? Because like, beat up some of the more experienced guys. And then all of a sudden, like you're talking to everybody afterwards. Someone's like, "Hey man, can I show you around town?" You're like, "Fuck yeah!" Like let's,
Yeah.
you're like instantly immersed in this social group where you've got some base level of like, understanding and something in common with them, right? And like this dude has now backed himself into a corner. He can never just drop in at a gym. He's got a giant target painted on his back, and like he doesn't get to experience it. I don't know. It's kind of in that sense, if I ignore everything else about him, it's kind of sad that he's now like excluded himself from ever experiencing any of this stuff, you know?
Doesn't that make it so much more doper though when like you got a guy like Tom Hardy or Mark Zuckerberg and like they're just out there just clanging and banging at a naga. Like Tom Hardy's out there just like going. I think he actually might have lost his last competition or something, but like he's just out there in the trenches, like doesn't tell anybody, just signs up. You see on your smooth comp Thomas Hardy, and you're like,
Dude,
no, it can't be.
Bro, he's a legend as well. This exact time last year, I was in New York, and I just dropped into Henzo Gracie just at a random. It was like 11 o'clock comp class or whatever class it was, and I was like, "Fuck, that's the guy who looks like Tom Hardy." And it was actually a guy who looked like Tom Hardy. Literally, like 5 minutes later, Tom Hardy walked in. And I was like, we're doing some rounds, and I went up to because I think the guy who was taking the class would curate who he's going to train with. I was like, dude, let me train with Tom, and we ended up doing some rounds together. And I was like,
yes.
dude, what a fucking legend! Like, obviously, I beat the shit out of him, but but like just seeing him afterwards after class, he took photos with everyone. He was super chill. He's like just an absolute fucking legend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I will say, because I accidentally said, I think he lost his last tournament. I meant to say he wins a shitload of stuff. Like he's good. He's really
decent.
fucking good. Yeah.
He's fucking decent, especially for a Hollywood actor. Like he comes in and it's like he's fucking He goes hard. He likes to train hard.
Well, dude,
And
not to
that
get
garners
like
respect.
what's
Go ahead,
that?
Alex. I was just saying, like, that garners respect, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that a lot of celebrities, remember the Ashton Kutcher debacle a few years ago, right? Where like he was training with Craig and they're like, wait a minute. But I think that a lot of celebrities get this in their head where they're like, if I show up to a jiu-jitsu class and a random nobody beats me up and I'm a celebrity, it all of a sudden lowers my social value or like my credibility or who I am as a person. And it's like, no, dude, that's the human experience of jiu-jitsu. That's how it works. We will respect you more. Like, dude, if I saw, I don't know, like some Mark Ruffalo or some random actor come into a jiu-jitsu class as a brand new white belt and just try his best and get beat up, I'm like, that's bad fucking ass. But if you go and like you're hiding behind the merits of like a private or whatever, and then you show up and you're like, yeah, I'm this, it's a little like, I don't know, dude, you weren't out here with us. It gives this like military thing of like the enlisted versus the general of like, but the general never did any combat, where it's like, go fight over there. And we're like, you're smoking a cigarette in your trench. Like, who the fuck are you? You know?
Yeah, no, like not to get like soft and like sentimental about it, but there's like there's that element of when you hop on the mats to train, a lot of that other shit melts away, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
someone who's in a ton of debt and whatever, that shit doesn't matter. Someone else who's like super wealthy, that shit melts away. Religion, all these other things, like it doesn't matter, right? And then you engage in this like, this primal thing that we're all trying to do. And like you said, Roman, it's kind of you respect when you see someone actually going through that and letting go of like some of this power and everything that they've amassed throughout their life, right? I'd even say on some level, you get these guys from other sports that start to get into jujitsu, and at first they gotta take their knocks, right? And even though they're
Yeah.
a good athlete, and if they stick with it long enough, they do excel. There's no way through it but like sucking at it at first, right? And we've
Yeah.
all we've all been there, and it's like this unifying thing. But yeah, then you've got like this weird character who never relinquishes that. And we're kind of like, we don't claim you, dude. You're not doing the same stuff as us, you know?
It's also like I've seen this. This is a little bit off topic, but it kind of came up whether you were talking. Is like I've seen this a lot that happens with athletes too, who like maybe get a little banged up or something mid tournament, and then they pull out with an injury, and it's like at least the like warrior mindset or whatever in me is saying like, dude, just go out on your fucking shield. Like we'll respect if you go out there with a taped up foot and you get ankle locked. Who gives a fuck? It's like just go out on your goddamn shield, dude. Like we're not, we know what's happening. You don't like, it's okay. But a lot of times, especially when it's somebody with like, I feel like a big name, maybe they'll get like a little banged up or be physically drained and go into like a semifinal or a final. And they're like, I decided to pull out, whatever. And it's like, you shield yourself from the loss rather than just walking back into the fire and saying, yeah, fuck it. I'll die in here. I don't care.
Yeah,
And
it's like another microcosm of just like accepting what jujitsu is and the fact that like you're human and everyone takes their L's.
yeah, exactly. No one's perfect. Everyone who's ever done jujitsu has been submitted, lost a match, or been embarrassed. Like it just happens. It's how it goes.
Dude, I went to Unity yesterday and to the comp class. I just got the shit kicked out of me by everyone. Like this, the 70, like you get the 70-kilo Brazilian guy who just basically just lives in there, calling me out, and I was just like, man, he's gonna be fucking good. His ears just look like, out to the side of his head, and he just beats the shit out of me for 6 minutes. I'm just on the floor, mounted, gets to my back, and you just leave, and you're like, well, that was fun.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
cares?
no, dude, your boy Ferris came by my gym yesterday, him and PJ. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
love
they had
Ferris, man.
just they had just gone to comp class at Atos, and same Ferris is like, bro, I just had like rounds with Kynan and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. Like you can just go to another place and just train with like, the best of the
Best in
best,
the world.
just
Yeah.
dropping in.
That's one of the crazy, like niche, very personal things about jujitsu is like you can just like train with like Michael Jordan. You can just train with LeBron. You can just train with Kobe. It's just like I get to just be here and train with you. And like, yeah, I mean, you're gonna dunk on me and like, throw the ball between my legs and then alley oop yourself. But like still, it's cool.
Yeah,
I
you would
remember
never get that experience in basketball.
No.
no,
Ever.
never. No, I remember when I first started training Roger Gracie's, when I really started like investing time into the comp classes, and then I eventually started training Roger in the weights room, and we became friendly. So we would just do rounds constantly, and bro, he would just obviously just beat the fucking shit out of me, and you'd leave comp class being like, that was amazing. I literally just got to do rounds with like the Michael Jordan of fucking, and Alex, you probably get that all the time, and Roman, you get
Dude,
that all the time now with like Gordon
dude, my
Ryan and
first
fucking. It's
My
cool.
my first big client in jiu-jitsu was JT Torres. In 2015 when I moved out here. He actually he talked to some people, he seeked me out. We sat down. He just had like meniscus surgery. Long story short, we to offset some of his training costs once a week on Saturday after strength and conditioning. The guy I worked for had a kickboxing gym that also had like weights, and we would do that session there, and then there were mats. And him and Nisar would give me a joint private once a week, and this was for like a year. And it would start with, dude, they would just Shark Tank me till something showed up in my game, and then they'd be like, "All right, this is what we're working on today." And dude, it
That's
was crazy.
badass, dude.
Dude, I don't know if you guys have ever trained with JT.
No.
He is the hardest round ever. Like, dude, I can count on one hand like the number of times I off balanced him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
dude, it's just wild. Like, and that was right off the bat, right? I'm training this dude in the weight room, and he's beating the shit out of me every single week. And then also like investing in my game and like trying to make me better. It was incredible.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's the thing with the Moneyberg thing. It's like if we all know, like if you just keep doing privates, it's obviously it's not how you get better. It's not the sport of jiu-jitsu. Like privates should just be like saved for, all right, I need something to work on. Or it's like come with questions. Do you know
It's
what I mean?
supplementary.
Yeah, you need to do the sport itself.
Yeah, you
Like
can't just take creatine. You got to lift weights.
Yeah, exactly.
Like taking the
exactly.
creatine is going to help, but you can't just like take creatine and be like, see that shit,
Yeah.
dude?
That'd
Same
be
with
so
juicing.
tight.
Yeah,
Pe
yeah.
pe People think about the like steroids as well. Yeah, but he's on steroids. Like, and I mean that's such a common thing that happens in like my posts. Like I'll post like a Russian athlete, and I'm like, yeah, but he did loads of juice. I'm like, how fucking stupid are you? Like,
Dude, it
he
all comes from the same fucking study of the guy that sat on the couch and did a steroid cycle, and they measured his limb width, which fills up with water and glycogen, compared to the trained lifter who struggles to put on extra amounts of muscle because he's a trained lifter. And they go, see, you gain more muscle on steroids, not training.
That
that's
no,
crazy.
I don't even think that gets into the biggest confounding variable. It only ran for 8 weeks.
Mm.
You cannot assume that that will continue indefinitely for forever, right? Yes, the first 8 weeks, of course, you're gonna retain more water. There are gonna be, but even let's say that it was actually muscle at first. That doesn't just continue for forever. It
For
it
sure.
can't,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
This is steroids. This is what they do, and I'm not going to say this is not from personal experience, because I train lots of brain dead jiu-jitsu athletes that message me about Trent on a daily basis. But here's a non-wink personal experience. All steroids do is they give you a secondary training life. So 9 years into training, I've experienced beginner, intermediate, advanced stages of lifting, and then it started over. I just went back to beginner again. That's it. You know what I mean? Like that's what it does. It just, you go back to the start. It doesn't make anything magical or special. And, I think a lot of people in jujitsu, especially, they'll train for a year and they'll be like, it's time. It's
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
time.
That it's
And
outrageous.
I'm like, guys, you have so much in the tank. I was 170 pounds when I started lifting weights. I was 170 pounds. I couldn't do a fucking pull up, And
Really?
then I was 170 pounds. I couldn't do a fucking pull up when I was in high school. And I went and became an Army Ranger, and also went and like benched like 355 and like rep 315. Like, guys, it's not like you have so much,
Mm.
so much, and but everybody, they want everything fast and quick and now, and then they don't consider all the complications and the extra layers that comes along with that, and why everybody in this sport seems to exit at about 31 years old, because they're all doing the wrong things and they can't keep their body healthy. And it's like, a lot of this sport reminds me of like early bodybuilding, in the sense of Like they haven't quite figured out how to do it right. And you see the same trends with athletes like exiting the sport or having these like weird off-brand performances. And without saying any names, but there's all athletes like that. And it's like, why are they and I think a lot of people contribute to like he's off cycle, but in my opinion, I personally think that PEDs are only performance enhancing up to a certain point, and that threshold is incredibly small. And it's the same reason that like ultra high volume training doesn't work or is not as effective, is because the amount of stimulus that you can get in any given session is so small, right? The amount of muscle growth that you can get in any given session is so small. And it's the same thing with PEDs. Being on 10 grams versus 10 milligrams is not going to be a 10,000 time multiplier. Being on 100 versus 500 is not going to be a 5 times multiplier. We're talking about incredibly fractional marginal gains for massive side effects. And so what everybody in the sport, in my opinion, I think, and I don't know any of that, no one fucking tells me any of this shit, I just think about this, is I think that they all believe that for any given amount, you have an equivalent response. And we all know this from just strength training, is that how much does strength training actually add to your, performance in jiu-jitsu? Like an amount for sure, but it's not going to 2x your game by getting stronger. It'll help, but it's like a 1.15. It's
And
not
even
going
when
to
it
2x,
does
3x,
help,
4x.
even when it does help, it slopes off, just like, the dose response that you were talking about with a substance, just like that slopes off at a dosage. Even if the strength improvement does add to your game, that doesn't mean that getting twice as strong will add twice as much to your game, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And so what happens is they jump the gun, they go super hard, they crank it up super high, and they just basically like shit the bed on their health. And then they just like, yeah, I'm retiring at 29, I'm gonna open up a school. And it's like, really?
I actually, okay, I actually want to talk about something that this is a great format. It would have been great if we still had Mike on here too. Okay, this is something that I've focused on for a while, but I would love to hear what you guys think about it. So, looking at the average competitor or champion at like, let's compare the age of a world champion in jiu-jitsu to the age of a UFC champion, right? We're looking at a difference of 10-ish years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but if we do a needs analysis of the sport, you would actually see that like power and velocity are actually way more required in MMA than they are in jiu-jitsu. So if we were just going off of needs analysis, I would expect the average age of the champions to be swapped, right? Like you would think that in a sport where you rely so heavily on power and stuff that after the age of 30, those dudes wouldn't be able to keep up with the younger guys.
Yeah.
My thoughts on this, and I'm open to being wrong because this is obviously just speculation. In something like MMA, if you've got, I don't know if you guys have worked with MMA fighters, but if you've got a guy that is sparring twice a week, they're an idiot and they're gonna fizzle out. They're gonna experience, some sort of head trauma that will make it impossible to train, and it's gonna throw off their whole career, right? Like once a week is the standard for sparring. And then they do a bunch of the composite stuff to keep their skills up, right? But we see the same thing in football. These guys aren't just playing like 11 on 11 tackle in practice. Right? They can't do that. Yet, if you look at the finished product at an NFL game, it's extremely high level, despite the fact that they're not sparring all the time. But with jujitsu, because you don't have that risk of head injury, there's no obvious thing that you're just like way, way overdoing it, right? And these guys that throw themselves into the meat grinder over and over again just rack up. They have an injury that is relatively minor. They mismanage the shit out of it. It becomes something major. Then there's another joint somewhere else where the same thing happens to the point where by the time they get to 29 or 31 or whatever, they can't actually do it anymore. Whereas MMA, in my opinion, because the head injury risk prevents you from overdoing it like that, those guys are able to prolong their career much longer. But I think in a perfect world with ideal or optimal training scenarios, the average age of a jiu-jitsu athlete that trains sustainably, or sorry, not a jiu-jitsu athlete, but a champion that average age would actually be more like 35, 40, you know, just because they didn't actually run themselves into the ground by the time they were 27.
Yeah. And I think it's like I think there's also some survivor bias too, a little bit, because some of our like lineal fucking, figures in the sport are actually around that age, right? Like we had this last ADCC, I think we had four people over the age of 35 medal, right? We had Wagner, Cyborg, Lovato. I think there might have been one more person, but it's like those guys, it's not. I think the conclusion people come to is like, well, they got the Bomba, they got the Acai, but I think it's really just like those are just the guys that didn't get injured, didn't have problem. And I mean, Wagner now had heart problems, but it's just the guys that survived are like confirming, like basically kind of what you're saying is like if you didn't shit like just destroy your body, like you can do this sport that is mostly like isometric strength, grip strength, and like slow controlled positional dominance for a long time. Because like you said, like in MMA, the explosive and power demand is so much higher, so much higher. So it would stand to reason that a sport that is like slug paced compared to that would favor older, more experienced champions. But like I said, going back to the whole like, people are kind of self-coached, especially in the world of like, I'm sure there's guys at, 15 years old doing PEDs in Brazil and stuff, of like that takes a toll on you coming up, and that combined with the hard training, combined with the cardiovascular stress, with that, the oxidative stress, with that, it just like burns athletes out and fizzles them out so hard that they don't survive.
Yeah, and the PED use lets you sort of like break those load management rules over and over, and you don't pay as harsh of a consequence in the immediate,
Yes.
at that point in time, you know?
Yeah.
And then
'Cause it,
before it's too late, it's over. Yeah.
yeah, because it makes you lose respect to those principles because you're like, I'm a fucking unit. It doesn't matter. I'll be fine. But it's like it's really breaking you down. It's such a good point that you brought up there, Sterner, because they just don't spar as much, and you're not breaking down your body anywhere near to the amount of people just doing jiu-jitsu. Like think about it, people doing jiu-jitsu twice a day, every single day. It's like, dude, of course that's gonna fucking make you exhausted. It's gonna wear you out so much. Think about, bro, we do one comp class and we're like, I'm fucking exhausted. You know what I mean?
Bro,
And you just
and
do that day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. Jiu-jitsu is tough. And the best way to train, like, there's the thing with jiu-jitsu, and you can do, like, speaking to Joseph Chan, he's so fucking good. Um, he does a lot of play, but he's very disciplined with the way that he trains with his play. And it's really hard to train that style, especially if you're competitive, because you just want to get stuck into it, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to control, and he's obviously a geek as well, the way he loves jiu-jitsu and studies moves, and like he just loves training jiu-jitsu. But he also knows that he doesn't want to compete for a long period of time. He's like, by 30, I don't want to do this anymore, because he just loves the sport. But to really get the most from your jiu-jitsu, it takes a lot of discipline, and you can't just be fucking setting the house on fire every time you train. So it's probably like realistically, you've got the same amount of two, let's say two hard sessions a week. Like we were talking about the Russians before. I think it was Mike talking about the Soviets. I think they only do. I think that when they become adults, or maybe growing up throughout the system, I think they only do two hard training set. Again, I could be butchering this, so I don't know exactly what the stats are, but they do 2 to 3 hard sparring a week, and it's like 2 or 3 rounds, and then they have a competition one day a week as well. And maybe that's actually included in the hard sparring. So let's say they do 2 hard sparrings and then one competition setup where they'll just have one match. People walk like, or however many matches they're going to have. They'll walk in, wear their fucking costume. Everyone's watching just so they get used to that comp setting. But they're not frying themselves all throughout the week. Sure, they're doing a lot of different styles of training, but they're not doing the sport as hard as they can every single day, which people tend to do for jiu-jitsu. They just come in, by the time it's sparring, they don't even think about it. Let's just fucking go because it's fun to go hard. But I don't understand that like that's gonna fucking pay. That's gonna impact your body and
Yeah.
affect your longevity.
The fatigue and physical consequences are the same, but you just like I said, you don't have the brain damage aspect that basically holds that forces you to adhere to those like fatigue and load management principles. And so yeah, you can just show up you can train jiu-jitsu every day until you destroy your knees, until you destroy your elbows, until you destroy your spine, your neck, whatever it may be. But it's like you do a couple of hard sparring sessions in a row, and all of a sudden, like you're
You can't
dizzy and
think.
you can't fucking put the spoon up to your mouth, and you're like, oh, this is a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I even think like, this is something I try to talk to some of my athletes about too, and just like plant the seed. But it kind of reminded me of what Rowan was saying earlier about like the amount of lifting that is actually stimulating, right? Versus what some people do. And of course, you've got these old bros that are hitting these crazy high volumes, and how much of it is actually contributing versus how much is just making them fucking tired. But we see the same thing in jujitsu, and this is something I ask a lot of these guys where it's like, okay, let's look at an extreme. Let's say you're going to train live 3 separate sessions in the same day. How many of those rounds in that third session, like for the neurological training, like how much are you actually practicing something that's going to be relevant to a tournament where you just sat for 10 minutes and then you have your 8 minutes or 10 minutes? Like it's actually so fucking different that it's like fighting somebody in your dreams. Everything's happening in such slow
Yeah.
motion that it doesn't actually, you're not building the same coordination that you need when shit is happening at match speed. So like what are you doing? You're just doing this because you feel that you have to, but you're not actually building those skills that you need.
Dude, I think the most useless rounds in the gym are at the end of practice when everyone's super sweaty and tired, and you're doing 20 seconds in between rounds, and you're just kind of in the zone and training and going hard, and you're just scrapping. That is literally the most useless training, because that has nothing to do with how like jujitsu actually happens in a competition. And we've all had the same experience of having this like, oh, this is different in competition. Like this is not like it's in the gym. This is not like practice. This ain't a fucking open mat. There's a different speed and technique requirement about being able having to address certain things that you don't really have to in training, like the like strategies, game plans, styles, all that stuff. And I genuinely think that like open mat style of training of just like we're sweaty and we're just training, we're going hard is almost useless.
Yeah.
Now, competition style classes where you try to sort of set conditions are really effective, and then skill acquisition is really effective. But that's sort of just like just training hard, bro. Honestly, I deem that in the same sort of like 4x12 like pump fluff work of bodybuilding.
Yeah, man. Dude, okay, some of the best comp classes we ever had when Atos and AOJ were still affiliated during Worlds Camp, once a week, they would either come here or we would go up to Costa Mesa and train with them. And the comp class was so big. It was actually brilliant. So it was so big that they would split everybody into light guys and heavy guys at a certain
Mhm.
weight, right? So it was half, and one group would be going while you're on the side. And so literally the same exact work to rest ratio you see in a tournament where essentially, the shortest amount of time in like an IBJJF tournament is one match between your match and your next one,
Yeah.
right? So like you're doing a match and then you sit for that long while someone else is going, and your next one is happening at like you've actually recovered and you're attacking. You're not just like I don't
Which
know,
is
man.
how fucking strength training is
That's
done.
Yeah,
that's actually such a good point, because it feels different. Like Roman said, it feels different when you're in competition, because it's like how often when you're in the jiu-jitsu, it's like you do a round, it's 30-second or 90-second rest. It's like your
oh
body's going to
dude,
feel completely different after a 5 to 10 minute rest. And if you're not used to that, you don't know how to react again
right.
into your next match, because you're going to feel completely different. You're like, oh, this is new to me, or oh, I've cooled down now. Maybe I'm a bit achy. I don't know how to like get ramped back up into where I need to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the science of like lifting is like very farther ahead than the science of like skill training
Oh.
in
Well,
America,
depends on the
and
sport.
especially jujitsu.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it depends on the sport. Depends on the sport. I would say
Yeah.
jujitsu, like this like this class structure of throw some random techniques at the wall and go live would literally be the equivalent of like football going like do a couple of tackling drills and then 11 on 11 scrimmage live go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's like,
and
what
like
the fuck? That's never how we practice in football.
right. Yeah, man, it's kind of wild. And like I do get it from like a business standpoint where when you don't have competitors and you got people making time from their busy schedule, like, okay, fine. You're doing your 5 minute rounds with 30 seconds to find a new partner. And it's a bunch of freaking like, math teachers that are there after work that just want to get their rounds in. Fine. But when it's a competitor, we're not just looking at like trying to get some exercise anymore. It's like, the quality of each session and each round actually matters way more than just the total volume that you do. It's so JT was actually the first guy, and this is something he planted in my head that I talk to a lot of my athletes about. I think there's a shift in a jiu-jitsu athlete's career. I think at the entry level, when you're a blue or even purple belt, you need exposure. And at that point in time, let guilt drive you. Go do the extra class. You need to experience different body types, different guards. You gotta like really get your feet in and like experience the sport. But by brown and black belt, it's no longer about total volume. And what JT and I did, we actually reworked his schedule like 3 or 4 times because what he said is, I'm trying to maximize my quality volume in a week. And for him, everything was about tracking quality. And if he was getting more total volume, but he felt his quality per session dip, he would actually change up how much he trained. It was brilliant. And it was
Yeah.
also kind of cool how he explained it from like a transition where like, yeah, if you're a blue belt and you're starting to get into competing, just train more. You got to train more, you got to experience it. But by the time you're a brown belt, you can't be training like that anymore and hoping that it's going to translate because you
Yeah.
need those good sessions.
Dude, it's the same thing with lifting, right? So it's like if when you're a beginner, you can just kind of just do a bunch of exercises, random sets, without really focusing on progression. You'll get a little bigger and stronger over a couple of years. But it's like where I'm at right now in my lifting journey is like I will if I come in the gym and I go, if I'm on incline bench and I take my reps at 315 from 4 to 5, that's a huge fucking win for me. I added a rep. But if I come in and I throw 250 on incline and I do a bunch of sets of 10, get a sick pump and go, yeah, that did nothing for me. I got nothing from that. I'd take the one set where I added a rep over the 5 random bullshit sets any day. It's the same thing with jujitsu. Like you said, when you get to a certain level, when you reach that advanced stage, it's you come in the gym and it's about the quality of the session rather than just like I did 5 rolls today and I did a bunch of stuff. It's like we're not here to just do stuff.
That's a tough sell though, man. It's tough to
Yeah.
convince like an athlete who started to see success through blue and blue and purple belt just training more and trying to convince that person that now they've sort of become their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Like some of these training volumes are just insane.
Yeah, it's interesting watching the top performers, the way they spar with people, the way they get like blue, purple belts, whatever. And you're like, I look at them, I like some of the guys in my room. I'm like, what are they doing sparring with that guy? Like they're just, and it's not like they're just beating the shit out of him. They're just like very formatively, like I'm going to try and hit this move on repeat, or at least
Hmm.
give him some space to get some kind of reaction, and then I'm going to hit my move. I'm going to trap them in this way. I'm going to move them in that direction, and just keep trying to hit this. How can I work out this specific technique in multiple angles?
There's an ego component too that like some people just aren't capable of doing that. You know what I mean? Like if I'm, training with somebody that I know is far worse than me, like in my head, getting my guard pass is a big deal, right? Like if I have my guard pass in competition, that's a fucking big deal. And so it's like if I'm in training and I'm trying to work on this very specific leg entry or whatever, like as they go to put knee on belly and I invert into backside 50, like trying to work on a specific skill or a move or whatever it may be, a skill development area, and I'm losing rounds or I'm basically getting scored on or they're hitting moves on me, it's like it feels wrong. It feels
Yeah,
embarrassing. It feels like it shouldn't be happening. It's like,
but
yeah,
it's
but
necessary.
I could just get up and just smash you. But it's like you have to have like this mentality about your training of like you almost have to be egoless while simultaneously having an ego where like you can't just be like the pot smoker 10th planet guy who comes in, gets his guard pass 17 times and he's like, for the love of the game. And you also can't be just like I am the Terminator and I'm here to smash with half guard chest to chest passing only. You have to be somewhere in this middle of like I have this to work on. I don't care if you hit a couple of moves on me. I'm going to hit this move as many times as I can and try really hard to hit it too.
Dude, I work with a good number of masters athletes, and like the masters archetype of TRT daddy, I don't fucking pull guard. I grab those guys at some point, like they're working with me in the weight room, and I hear him saying that, and I'm like, I'm at some point I'm gonna address this. And usually it'll be after I roll with them and like show them how fucking dumb that is,
Yeah.
right? Because like, I grew up wrestling and stuff. I'll fucking pull guard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
even tell them is I'm like, dude, the best thing for your game, if you just took, I'm like, hey, how did your round with Steve go 2.5 weeks ago? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, exactly. Take the next 2 months and pull guard every fucking round. It'll be the best thing for you. And no one will know what you did in the rounds of March 2025. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
let that build your actual skills because then you're going to be a more complete fighter.
Have you ever heard somebody say, "Well, I submitted that guy in training," and you go, "You're a fucking bitch. Like, no,
No,
you piece of
the
shit."
best is I almost submitted
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Define almost,
Dude.
dude.
If I ever hear anyone say, "Oh yeah, I did this to him in training," I go, "You're a fucking pussy. You're a
Yeah.
pussy, dude."
Right. And it just shows that you also can't categorize like how things are happening in a productive way. You're just getting that like little dopamine rush of
Yeah.
I did the thing as opposed to like, bro, did you get better today?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
It's like going and seeing like a world class power lifter go do like a block of training at like RP or RPE like 6, right? And then you max out and you're like, dude, I'm lifting more than the world champion. It's so
Sure.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
goofy, man.
All right, boys. I think this has been a fairly productive podcast. Nonetheless, extremely fun. We're almost clocked in at 2 hours here. Just
Hell
the boys,
yeah.
the boys hanging out. I got to shoot off.
I'm a blabber.
No, it's fucking sick. We need to do more of these. Me and Stoner were saying this. We need to do more round table panels of basically just aimless talks where we can just catch up and talk shit.
Yeah,
I'm down.
yeah, it's fun.
Sick. All right, boys. We'll get all the links below. Anyone have anything else to say? No.
What do you
No,
guys got?
I gotta go get my lift in.
Yep. I
Fired
lifted
up,
this
dude.
morning, 7
Yeah.
a.m. Fucking
I
brutal.
got a fucking ass load of work to do. So
What do you got on? How's your YouTube going? I know every time I speak to you, I always ask about the YouTube. I think that's
Dude,
the top tier of content creation in my opinion.
I 100% agree. If I'm going to search out a topic that I want to learn about, put on a podcast, listen to anything long form, not just long form, but just anything informative, you're not catching me in fucking reels, dude. I'm going to YouTube. That being said, I'm slacking on it.
Dude,
I need to get on top of it though, for sure.
it's
It's hard to do
hardest.
so many things at once though, dude, especially by myself, you know?
Yeah.
What is your process for YouTube, Roman? You got like an editor, or are you just doing all that shit yourself?
Dude, I literally film everything myself. I edit everything myself. Everything's right now to myself, except that I just hired a sales team for my coaching because that was just literally getting fucking out of hand. Like I can't handle I can't handle the marketing, closing, DMing. I can't,
Yeah.
it's just too much, dude.
Dude, pro tip, if you could barter with a videographer or editor and train them and have them, dude, that's what I've done with YouTube for the longest time. For my long form content, I can't edit that shit, dude.
Yeah, yeah, I suck
Ju-
at it.
it's painstaking for YouTube because it's such a big, like if you're gonna get an hour's worth plus of footage and then you're like, all right, I need to edit this. By the way, CatCup or CutCup, whatever the fuck it's called, is now on PC, which makes things way easier.
Yes,
Way
yeah,
easier.
that's what I use.
I was using Adobe Premiere Pro, and I was like, I'd press the wrong button,
Yeah.
and I'll just lose everything. I'll be like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
dude.
Dude, we're cavemen. We can't use that shit.
Yeah, I
No.
got the Da Vinci Resolve, and I was like, oh no.
Well, even the name of that, what were we thinking downloading that?
I don't know. I thought, dude, I'm tech savvy, but I'm not like video editing tech savvy. That's a different realm. That's a different, like, I have a finance degree. I am good in Excel, you know? So I was like, I got this, dude. Download DaVinci, and all of a sudden it's like, there's like Streamlight audio, and then like pairing the audio with the video, and then different timeline. And I'm like,
Dude, and
Yeah,
everything's like tinted red, and you're like, what the fuck did I do?
yeah, where it can't find the source, dude, or some shit. It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Even just like going to like, even if I just put clips in, just do the snip tool, and then go to export it, it's like, what are the settings you want? And I'm like, YouTube, is that a setting?
It's crazy. I've been playing around with some YouTube vlogging recently. I really like the Sam Sulek style of just like you film, you cut it up a little bit, you just make some like fairly smooth transitions in between each edit, and that's it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's a reason why he got so popular because he's just some
100%.
fucking American hick that, he's very funny. He just sits and talks shit. There's a lot of value in like getting that plain simple content out, and then obviously you can like I understand it's a time consumption, but then you can also get the more edited, polished version of YouTube too.
That's pretty much what my content is right now. I actually had a video for my very first video, and then I saw it and I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure I can do that myself. And so I was putting in more of that raw Sam Sulek style content of just me in the gym, answer questions, lift, talk. And that I love that. I'll put more of that out, but I do want to step up one level of like polish.
Yeah, it'll make a difference because there's so many fucking retards out there who are just like they just know how to make a good thumbnail, they know how to make an edit, and like I watched some video the other day of a guy who does like a breakdown of every sport, and you're like, oh my God, you don't know anything you're talking about. He had some like MMA fighter, and it's like, I mean, we've all seen the videos of like Fedor doing this exercise, and this helped him unleash this punch. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Look at the
Oh
video.
my God, dude.
It's got 500,000 YouTube hits. And you're like, oh my God, what the fuck?
The barbell jump press.
The
The secret to to punching power.
dude, I did a video and I was like,
Gravity.
I was so passionate about this the other day. This guy who trained these Soviet boxers, and the video flopped. It only got like 600 likes or something. And I was like, like, how do I make this entertaining? Because it's like this guy teaching all these Soviet boxers how to fucking like use their hips and actually punch properly. And this guy trained Bivol, and it's like, why is that so hard to understand? That like, if you just learn how to fucking punch properly and you just get strong, that's it. Shut up. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. This is the problem, man. We're all in the same boat of like trying to use logic against an illogical monster. It's like the triangle peg does not fit in the square hole. Like it's just like it won't go in.
Yeah.
Dude, but I think it's great. I think honestly, like watching you guys blow up and stuff, like finally there's other sane people in this space. Dude, like, man, 5, 6 years ago, I was just like, oh my God, there's no, it's like all falling on deaf
But
ears.
you were the guy. I told you this in our podcast now. You were the guy. I remember following you like 7 or 8 years ago, and I was like, who else is doing like strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu? It was literally lecture and performance. You
Yeah.
were like the OG doing that back in the day.
I saw Electron Performance stuff before I was even posting on Instagram multiple years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Like,
just such a pussy with content creation for the longest time. You know, I would perfectly curate something and perseverate over it, and now I'm just like I fart and have a thought, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh man, I'm fucking posting that.
Dude, that's why I just let it rip now, dude. I let the Roman Jiu I am the same person on the Roman Jiu-Jitsu account. It's just cranked up to 10. I just let the controversy, the fucking logical fallacy, the fucking appeal to my own authority, the fucking
Dude, starting
cool
with the double
physique.
bicep, yeah.
Yeah.
I just let it fucking rip, dude. I don't give a shit.
What
Cuz it's like
what
I know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
like I'm not standing on the throne of glass that the typical like fitness influencer is doing, where they're like, this is how I grew my biceps grew double in size when I did this. Like I know I'm a fucking nerd. You're right. I trained for a long time before anything else ever came into the picture. A long fucking time. I studied my ass off. I know the evidence. I know it like the back of my fucking hand. I don't say shit that I don't know. And so like that's why I'm totally fine with stepping on the gas and letting that bitch rip. Cause it's like, yeah, come to the comments, motherfucker. Come on.
What I think you do really well, Roman, is and James Smith taught me this ages ago. It's like you have to, and our boy Angus Bradley talks about this too. It's like you have to use the platforms for what they're designed for. Like
Yeah.
Instagram is like, I'm curious. I haven't been on your TikTok before, Roman, but I'd imagine your TikTok fucking bangs because your style of like content just
Yeah.
seems super TikTokable. Like, I guess you could probably make it a bit shorter for TikTok,
It
but
does
like,
okay. I mean, like 23,000 on TikTok.
okay.
It's okay. Yeah. I'm a bit older though. So they're like, oh, it's an unk. you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true. But like, yeah, like Instagram, like we're not gonna make a fucking 90-second plus video on Instagram because like the people just don't sit there on their phones looking at a
No.
video for that long. So it's
Dude,
like,
you know what fucking bothers the shit out of me is when somebody puts something in the comments and I'm like, I've already explained this. Go watch this video. And they're like, I'm not watching your video and giving you views. It's like, what do you want from me, dude? You want me to write you a dissertation in the comments? Like,
No,
I already made the content.
dude, I will say though, some of Romans do get longer and they're still good. Like you've got good
no,
transitions. You do a good job of like managing like the short attention spans on Instagram, but still packing in. Dude, the one the other day on specificity. Like
that was
it,
sick.
yeah, that was
Thank you.
great.
Thank you. Yeah. Some
So
of yeah, it's hard to like pack in like what you're saying, the value and keep the attention span. So I have to like you should see my CapCut audio tracks. It's literally like 80 different audio splices spliced together.
Man.
what I mean by that is like, of course, the video is going to have loads of content. It's going to be a great video, but like in terms of like maximum damage, and I was talking to you about, I think we were DMing about the Sterner. It's like for maximum damage to grow your following and get like more views, the shorter stuff kind of what like I think Sterner did, Roman did that video about why Hydrox athletes are gay or something, and it just we were chatting about this. You're like, this is so stupid. Like the fact that this video like blew up is just retarded. But it's like you can leverage some of those videos to get people to your page to show them
Exactly.
your longer form content. So it's like you
And
obviously you're not going to hit them all the time, but you
no.
want to have it's like our portfolio basically.
Yeah. And what I found too is the top of the funnel. So the bottom of the funnel that makes you money, right? The top of the funnel is it has no bearing on like I'll just say it in simpler terms. The views that go up, when my views go up, my followers go up, my money goes up. I can make super high quality, super valuable videos where I dump information. But if they get the same amount of views as anything else, it's generally around the same amount of like bottom of the funnel, like pull down.
Yeah.
I think that's where YouTube comes in, you know, like YouTube, if you've got like quality stuff where you dive in on YouTube, all you have to do is use Instagram and all those other things to start to get those eyes. And once people actually want to know your shit, then they're going to go to your YouTube and they're going to actually consume the longer stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Emails too. My mate James Smith was telling me about this. So like you can get all the views and stuff, and it's like quite hard. It can be like quite tricky. Well, I'm interested to see where it's going with like younger generations and stuff for making sales and like how that will change email marketing, etc. But if you could just fucking bombard people with like good emails and riz them up, like you can make a shit ton of money in them. Like my one of our boys is making, you know, seven figures a fucking
I
seven,
will
eight figures a year.
I will talk to you guys off air about my sales team if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love that.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's how do I stop recording? We should all right, cool. We're ready? Good to see you boys. We're gonna go offline now.